Welcome to the Side by Side podcast with Tim and Linda Seidler, where we discuss the real and the raw of church, life, and leadership.
So it's been a while
It has.
since we've been here.
Yeah.
Like 2 years.
Wow. Has it been that long?
Yes, I
Well,
think it has been.
It's good to be back.
When we started building the building.
Yeah. When we
This
built
was the last time we
our
were.
new church. But
Right.
it's good to be back and
It
having a
is.
conversation. And
It is.
we have video now.
We do.
So that's an upgrade. So that's
It's happening.
moving on up. Yeah.
It's
So
happening.
good. So
What are we going to talk about today?
what we were thinking today was, and this might or might not be interesting to certain people, but it's part of our story, and I think it can apply to a lot of different levels for a lot of different people. But we're going to talk about the ups and downs of ministry, the ups and downs of pastoring, because we've pastored now 15 years. How long have we been doing ministry together?
Over 20.
Over 20 years. So in that period of time, would you agree that we've seen the highest of highs and experienced really the lowest of lows, and what that journey looks like, and just how it's affected us? And because I think it's a life lesson, whether you're doing ministry or not, life's about ups and downs, highs and lows, and how you handle the in-betweens is really what matters.
Right.
So let me start with you, okay? Because I'm going to ask you from your standpoint. If you had to list one thing, if you're going to say, man, this one moment stands out to me on something that was incredible that happened to me in ministry over the last, you can even say the 15 years of our church. Is there one thing, or is it more of a palette for you?
That's a hard one. I don't look at it as one moment, to be
Okay.
honest with you, because what I really think about is the dynamic of the church. Because where we started, the good thing that would have been then is much different than what it is now,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what I would find as successful or as one of the highlights would be much different than what I would experience now because of the growth of our church, the growth of us as individuals and together as a couple, as pastors.
Right.
So I don't, honestly, unless we're talking and I think of something, there's not like that one moment. But I think for me, the highlight of what's happening is that we're still seeing people come to church. So why do I say it like that? Like, why would that be a highlight? Because we know who we are and we know who we were and what God has developed us to be.
Yeah.
So it has to be God that's the one that's bringing people. And I think I'm still intrigued by that because there are times we're driving home from church and we're kind of like, wow,
Yeah.
people came today. Not that we don't believe God can do it, right? It's not that we don't believe
yeah.
God can do it, but we believe that God can do it despite who we are, if that makes sense. Not that we're like, there's something wrong with us.
You
but,
know, I was thinking about this today. This is funny because think of it in terms of a business owner. Not that we're business owners, but think for people that are business owners, small business owners, right? As a small business owner, you survive by people coming to your business. Well, we're in God's business. And when we want people to come to church, this is something we've learned over 15 years. It's like being a small business owner. You want people to come to your business to support you. But for us, for me at least, it's not as much to support us.
Yeah.
It's that we know what will happen if they come to the house of God. And I think for me, the thing that has kept me fired up over this period of time is still seeing people, like you just said, that come and seeing what happens and seeing the change. And some people it's drastic. It's like right now, they come one day and they're like, oh my gosh, my life's changed. Other people, it's a process, right?
Right.
But it's still incredible to see.
So if you're thinking about all those highlights and that's your highlight reel, and then you look on the other side, so we're dealing with people. Would you say that there are some major challenges with that? Would you say?
Oh my gosh, that's the whole yes, that's the whole challenge. You know, somebody said this before, and it's funny, but it's true. They said church would be great if it wasn't for the people.
I said that.
That was your quote. Okay,
Yeah.
But
I mean, I may have heard it somewhere.
You probably did. We all rip stuff off. But here's the deal. For me, I do love, and you know that I have a heart for people. I really do, and I care about people. And I think the trick is this. From a pastoral position, is to be able to love people even when they don't love you, is to be able to lead people even when they don't want to be led, is to be able to help people even when they don't want to be helped.
So how do you do that? I'm gonna
Well,
interrupt you. That's the
that's
magic
a great question because I think this could apply to whatever people are listening. If you're in a business or in your family, right, whatever that looks like.
But how do you actually do what you just said? So yeah, we can say that.
Yeah.
But how do you do that?
Well,
you personally, how do you do that?
So it is I don't want it to sound cliche, but it's a power greater than me.
Right.
It's greater than he that's in me than he that's in the world. I can't love people like that in my own strength. I really can't. It's hard too in the strength of Jesus, sometimes, if I'm being honest, because people will say and do things that are very hurtful. And I think it's because they don't think it's personal.
Yeah.
But people have said and done things to us. It's not just us, it's just people. Mm-hmm. But it would be so easy to walk around wounded.
Yeah.
Right? Do you agree with that? To just, if you let that stuff get to you, you could just walk around hurt and mad and angry and negative all the time. And man, we've just talked about it. Life's too short.
Yeah.
And we're still on mission. So you got to let that stuff roll off. And you have to not just focus on who hurt you, but who can heal you. Mm-hmm. And for us, it's getting other people to see that too. Because it's that for everybody in the church, everybody in the world. We've been hurt by someone somehow, some way, right?
I think the way that I look at it now is I'm not for everybody, but I'm for somebody.
Mm-hmm. You're for me.
So for sure, vice versa.
True. Okay.
But I have had to learn because at first I wanted to be all things to all people.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that because I think you're really good at this. I think a lot of people listening might struggle with this idea of people pleasing. Mm-hmm. Where's the boundaries in that? Because we're called, Jesus said, love God, love people. Mm-hmm. So how do you live your life loving people without this weight of, man, I gotta make everybody happy? Can you talk about that?
So I thought I had to be all things to all people, and I realized no, you can be somebody to someone. You don't have to be something to everybody, but you can be something to somebody. Mm-hmm. So I've had to learn that there are people that just are not my people.
Yeah.
And that was hard for me because I have always had a lot of friends and a lot of different dynamics and demographics, right. And it's never been about socioeconomic or anything like that to me. But in saying that, not everyone is your person. And even like, so if we're talking in ministry, let's say you have a group of people that come in and you feel like you need to go and talk to them, and there's some people who have some issues or whatever that might be, and you think that you can be that person's person.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always happen like that. And so I've had to rest in the fact that if it's not me, then it's someone else in the church. Mm-hmm. If it's not me, then God has something else planned. And I also rest in this. I ask God to put the people in my path that he wants me to have direct relationship with.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's just not me. And
it can be somebody else, right? Somebody.
Well, it can be somebody else. Yeah, I'm hoping it's somebody else, that somebody else grabs onto that. But that in itself is something that so many of us, we want everybody to like us. Yeah. We want everyone to affirm that what we're saying is the right thing and all of that. Yeah. And it just doesn't happen. But that's real life. That's like everybody.
Right.
But it just doesn't happen like that. So again, how do you manage that? And that's how I manage it. I have to say, not that I'm not hurt, not that it doesn't bother me, because I want to be like everybody's person, but I'm not everybody's person. Yeah. So it's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay. And even in leadership, I would say to somebody who is leading, even, in a circle of friends or people or business or whatever that looks like don't beat yourself up because that person is not your person. Mm-hmm. God, like when Jesus was gathering his disciples, he had 12 and then he went 72 and he had he couldn't be everything to everybody in that moment. But the 12 people that went out could be. They would go to different places, and then the 72 would go to different places. And we have to remind ourselves that it takes all of us in the body of Christ to reach the nations.
And you know what's funny? We know the people that followed him, how many didn't?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We don't know about those people that maybe got the invite that didn't do it. Here's something that I've struggled with that I think you've tried to help me with that I'm still working on. And this is a ministry thing because, again, we love our church. We really do. And every single person, even in a large church, we care about every single person. We want to meet everyone, but not everyone's emergency is my emergency. Mm-hmm. And I still,
talk about that.
I can because I still feel it. And I feel the weight of if somebody's got a problem. Some people say, well, pastors never take a day off. You're on 24/7. And to some degree, that's really true. I mean,
that's not my calendar.
That's not your calendar. And I feel that weight though. And that's good that you can do that because no one, Jesus couldn't go 24/7.
That's it. Yeah.
So we're trying to manage the time off and how to shut down. And what you're trying to help me with is there are certain things that I need to respond to right now. And somebody else that's listening can, again, use this in your context.
Sure.
But there are other things that just because somebody texts you right then doesn't mean you have to text them back right now. And that's something that I've been dealing with because I'm like,
I always say 24 hours.
Yeah, that's a good.
I mean, that's just.
I'm like 24 seconds. I got to get 24 seconds. So I'm trying to get better at that because there's an undue pressure. And it's like I feel sometimes, just being honest, sometimes I feel a little scattered and trying to get back to everybody quickly. And, you don't want to upset people. But this is, again, we're talking ups and downs of ministry, trying to be real so people can kind of get a glimpse behind the curtains on what it's like in our world. Right. So for you, is there something that you would say has you've experienced firsthand that you were like part of, that you go, this is why I love pastoring. This is the thing, man, right here. This is what lights my fire. This is what keeps me going. This is what motivates me to keep on going in pastoring. Is there one thing, or would you say again, it's broad for you?
For me, it's am I being effective in what God's called me to do? If I'm not being effective, then I'm doing the wrong thing.
What's the gauge of that? How would you know if you're being effective?
Response from people. Now, again, it's not always 100%.
Yeah.
It's not always 100% that everybody, again, goes back to not everybody likes everything that you're doing. That's, why we have different people leading different things. We both are pastors. We both preach at different times. But there is something about a response, specific response that people have to maybe, let's say I'm preaching that Sunday.
Yeah.
And I walk off the stage and think, wow, God, I don't know if that was the right message. And I just did that recently. I walked in my office and I said, man, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was the right thing, if I did that right. And, if that was really what God wanted me to do. And then I've come to find out that message affected so many people that came up to me. It was an affirmation, not of how great I am, but that the thing that was coming out of my mouth was the appropriate thing for the people in our church on that particular day. That's what keeps me fired up.
Yeah.
The moment that stops to happen, that stops happening, then I think maybe my time is better served somewhere else.
It's interesting. Yeah.
Because
there's stuff that's seasonal, right?
There's stuff that's seasonal, but yeah. But I think what I mean by that is you're asking what keeps me going.
Yeah.
That's the thing that keeps me excited about what it is that I do.
Yeah.
Because again, I don't want to be ineffective. I don't want to just be another voice.
Right. There's so much noise on. Isn't there so much noise right now?
Well, you
get on social media. There's a squillion pastors. There's so many sound bites, everything. And I find myself, I'm scrolling and it just becomes noise to me. Everybody's just saying the same kind of stuff. And that's why I think we're passionate about trying to be different, trying to be who we are in the best way that we can be us.
I think there's an authenticity with that too, though. Again, I mean, I've done a lot of soul searching with a lot of these things. And because I've seen so many people that I, in maybe deep down, have wanted to emulate because of the effect that person has on me. But I have to remind myself that their calling is not my calling.
Yeah,
their calling may be to minister to me so that I can walk in my calling, which is to minister to these people or talk to these people or coach these people or whatever the wording is we want to use. There's so much terminology, but that's the thing that I think that really jazzes me up. It's like, okay, I walk away, I'm going, okay, God,
let's go.
You did what you were, I did what I think you wanted me to do. And now you took it one step farther and you helped this next person. Now I'm excited for the next time around.
Because Sunday's coming.
Yeah,
you got to constantly reload in church world, don't you? It's like,
so what
you
about, I'm going to interrupt you. What about you? What about you? What keeps you going?
I'm still old school in the fact that when we see a hand raised at the end of a service, when I see somebody saying yes to Jesus, yes to eternity, new life in Christ, born again, call it whatever you want, getting saved, man, that's still my thing. Like look what God is doing. He's using our church to populate heaven, to depopulate hell. And sometimes it means more for me, especially when you get a glimpse behind the scenes of where they were. Like for us this week, we have baptisms in our church. We're going to baptize over 30 people. And when you hear the stories, like, here's where I was before I walked into your church. Here's what God's done since I've been here. And again, the church it's a building, but God dwells in this place. And there is power. I believe there's power in the place. And when you hear the stories of what happened as a result of people being in this place and God touching their heart, we're seeing the miraculous still.
Yeah, we are.
You know, people say, well, does God still do miracles? I see God doing miracles every Sunday in our church. So that, to me, like baptisms, that fires me up.
Well, exciting things, good things, all the stuff we just talked about. Let's go on the complete opposite spectrum. Challenges. So let's talk about challenges. What are the things that are challenging for you aside from not getting back to people? But that's kind of a you thing. I'm talking about things that affect you in a way that you scratch your head and think, okay, God, do we keep going? Do we keep, like, is this something that you want us to keep doing? Because I'm not feeling the love right now. So to speak.
Real talk. This real talk. So for me, it's when you pour your heart and soul into people, and we've done it. And it's not just us, but I'm just saying this for me. You disciple, and you encourage, and you help, and you do whatever you got to do for people, and then they just walk away. That's frustrating for a pastor.
You chase them down? Do you chase them down?
Well, yes and no. For me, there are people that I'm like, I just wish I had an answer. Again, if we're being, some people just walk away, just like, tell me, like, hey, pastor, I'm whatever. But that's still frustrating. We're talking about frustrating, that people that you feel like, man, I've given them my heart and soul, and then one thing, they can just turn and walk away. And that's frustrating. Question marks. Do I chase them down?
I'm teasing when I say
no,
that.
it's a great question. I pursue people. I really do, because I think they're worth pursuing. But at some point, you got to let them go. And they don't belong to me to begin with. They never have. They never will. They're not mine. They're God's. I was just entrusted with them as a shepherd for a period of time. That's one thing that's frustrating. Another thing that has been incredibly hurtful that I've got better with, because I've turned down the noise, is what people have said about us, our family, on social media. I mean, the most lunatic, craziest things. I can't even make it up. You can't make this stuff up, how insane it is. But people say it. There's no validity. They just make stuff up. And you're going, what? It's hurtful. Some of the stuff has been incredibly hurtful. But here's what's helped me with that. I just don't read it. People say, oh, have you seen what so-and-so? I don't read it. I do not tune in to the noise of idiots any longer. I don't know how else to say it. I don't have time for it. It's sideways energy. And I would tell anyone listening, one of the best things that you can do to give your mind a break is to quit believing social media as the gospel and maybe spend less time there and more time in the Bible if you want real truth, because social media is upside down world.
When you're talking about, let's go back, not social media, but just people in general, and people that
do you want me to give names so we can list names?
No,
we won't. I'm kidding.
Because it's irrelevant.
It is.
It's irrelevant. But the analogy that we've used is that when people come and people go, is that we are the conductors on a train. Excuse me. It's the Ohio Valley right now. We're the conductors on a train, and we're taking the train to the next stop. People will get on. Some people may get off. We keep going. But our job is not that we don't evaluate, because we do evaluate, and that's important to do self-evaluation and church evaluation. But there will be people that get on and get off all the time. And that is, attrition. People pass away, people move away, all those things, or people just leave. And so I think our purpose has always been, we have got to keep conducting the train and keep doing what? Looking forward.
Yeah.
We keep looking forward. We can look back for a second, but the minute that we start to keep our head backwards and keep looking at the people that are getting off the train or leaving, as we would say in church world, is the minute that we wreck the train because we're not looking forward.
Yeah, it's
we
good.
have to keep our eyes looking forward the whole time.
Yeah, we got to keep it moving.
Right.
Here's another. It's a bigger frustration for me on the big church is now because of social media, everyone knows everything about everyone.
Yep.
Okay, and sadly, a few high-profile pastors have really messed up. Okay. And I'm not listen, they've messed up. I'm not saying anything they did was right. I'm saying it was absolutely wrong and it was horrific what some of these people did. But what people tend to do then is they take, again, that broad brush, and that's all churches. And I want to say this, 99.9% of the pastors and churches out there are doing an incredible job. They really are.
I agree.
They're laying it all on the line to see people's lives change, to get people into heaven. Now, a few mess up.
Right.
Because you said it earlier, it's people.
Yeah.
We're all just people.
Yeah.
And again, it's terrible because it does a disservice to the church. That's why for you and I, we are so careful because one slip up, right? Everything that we've worked so hard for, and it would let so many people down. So we are so careful. But it's sad. That's another thing that's just sad to me, though, what has happened with a few high-profile pastors and how many people now just go, well, that's the church. No, it's not the church. The church is still the hope of the world. It's still God's plan A for saving the world, and there is no plan B. And it's done, even in the Ohio Valley, there's some incredible local churches here doing a fantastic job right in our backyard. I have nothing negative to say about one church in this area. I kudos to all of them. I think they're doing all a great job.
And we need everybody. We need all the churches. We can't just exist in one church. It doesn't work like that. You have to have all the different churches. You have to have smaller churches, larger churches. You have different denominations, non-denominational. You have to have them all because we still have people to reach.
Yep.
And not all people will come just to our church.
Yeah, that's it.
So
okay, let me ask you something. So I think one of the things that we've learned and we do well, I think you do it really well, is empowering other people in leadership. So old school church, the pastor would do everything, right? The pastor would do the Bible study. The pastor would clean the church. The pastor would greet people. He'd visit people in the hospital. I could go on and on.
Yeah, all of it.
And I don't think that's biblical. I think the Bible says that the role of the pastor is to equip the saints to do the work of the ministry.
Right.
So we're more into equipping other people that they can lead people too, not just us. So talk a little bit about your experience over the last 15 years, maybe what you've learned that might help someone else if they're trying to grow in their position, whether it's at a business or if they're at a job or in their household, whatever capacity in their context they're at. How has that helped us and how can that help you?
There's a couple things. One probably in the front of my frontal lobe would be, don't get offended and let things go. They're two separate things, but I think they go hand in hand. So if you're going to be a great leader, you have to learn not to be offended by just about everything, whether it's with your staff, whether it's with your co-leader, whether it's with your church, the people that are working for you, the people that are coming in. That's the thing that I found with a lot of people in ministry, that they become bitter and they become resentful and a wall is built up and there's not joy in the leadership anymore. There's no fun.
They don't love who they're trying to lead.
They don't love who they're leading. They don't love who they're working with. All of those things. So there's something about being very, very careful with the spirit of offense. And I call it a spirit of offense because offense doesn't come from God. It comes from an enemy, and that's a spirit of offense that he puts on us that we allow to happen. Yeah. So, if somebody's listening today and you have that, you're offended by somebody, take a look. I think what I try to do, I'm not 100% at it by any means, but I try to look at the person who has said something offensive and think, is there something going on within them that has caused them to say this to me or act like this toward me? And it helps me because I realized, just like I'm offended and that bothered me today, maybe there's something in them that had created the same thing. Again, maybe they're not for me, but maybe they are for me, and they just said something on a whim. It happened to me recently.
Yeah.
Very recently, within the last month.
Yeah.
And I've had to, at first, you know how you kind of
body language,
you do that thing where you stand up real straight. And I was like, and I realized at that moment, oh my gosh, my body language is saying it all. And I don't want to do that to someone.
Wow.
And so I had to go back, went home, rethought it, prayed about it, came in with a different attitude. And I'm like, I don't want to be that kind of a leader.
Yeah.
I really don't. Again, not 100%, still have that
Yeah,
inner Helga's still in me that I got to
Helga.
push her down sometimes, but that's just the truth. So it's always working on who you are as a leader.
Yeah.
Like, you have never arrived. That's the other thing too. You've never arrived, that you're never at the place where you can't learn about yourself and allow God to tell you about yourself.
I think people need to always have self-evaluation. You can have other people evaluate you, but if you're not evaluating yourself, where you are, how you're doing, what you're doing.
What's some self-evaluation that you would
Oh
suggest?
my gosh, for me, like even, say for preaching, I watch every message that I preach and I evaluate it.
Okay.
Did I say this the right way? Could I have said this better? Do I look like an idiot when I'm doing this? Why did I say that? You know, I'm my own worst critic, and I'm not being critical, but I'm critiquing because I want to be the best that I can be. So, I mean, that's just your.
What about not on the stage?
Self-evaluation, not on the stage. Okay, so in our context, you and I have a conversation. You tell me how you're feeling about
yourself?
About me. You're telling me about me,
okay,
and then I have a choice. I can go like this. Okay. You know, or what I was trying to do today when we were having a conversation.
You didn't do that. I noticed that.
Did you see that?
I did. It was like, today's the day. It changed.
Right now.
It was today. What's the date?
I'm trying to go, I'm trying to listen. You said, don't just listen with thinking of a response.
I did say that.
You did say that. So listen. So I'm listening. I'm going.
But it's not your nature. It's not your nature though. But you are trying.
That's right.
You're trying. And I think that's okay.
But as a leader,
you have to try.
It doesn't matter in your house or in your church, right? You got to be trying to get better.
You do. And I even think in our relationship personally, as late as this morning, October 23rd of 2024, literally think about that.
No.
Like,
and
we've been married
for we just said
35 years. And literally today we had, like, it was a leadership lesson for us.
You were, well,
I was teaching you.
You were teaching me.
normally
how it goes.
But I am a teacher.
You are.
So.
You are.
But no, in all seriousness, self-evaluation, that's all of it. That's all of it. So,
okay. So we could talk about this forever.
We got to wind down.
Let's wind it up for our first podcast. This is the first of many. We're going to get back in a rhythm.
Man, I feel like we could go like for 2 hours now, right?
We could.
Okay.
So, again, we hope this helps people. It's, it's interesting to listen, but throughout these talks, we're hoping to give you handles that you can apply to life, that you go, I can use that in my context.
Right.
So, Linda, the last thing, I'm going to give you the last word. I'm going to have you wrap it up. So for someone that was listening today, if you're going to say, maybe they were contemplating ministry, because here's my deal, whether you're on the stage or not, if you're a believer, God's given you a ministry. We all have the ministry of reconciliation, putting people back together, relationships. So for people that are trying to do what God wants them to do and are struggling, what's the last thing that you would end today with and tell them to do?
I'll just seek God. I really think that you seek God on what it is that he expects you to do and what he wants you to do. Keep seeking his word. There's no better lesson on leadership than what God would tell us about ourselves. I mean, there's all the other stuff, but when you boil it down, really God has the final say. You don't hear as much about things about being offended, forgiving people, that kind of thing in your regular lay leadership.
No.
That's so much a part of it for me that I think almost that trumps everything else, because we're dealing with people. So you have to think, if you're dealing with people, how do you want to treat people? I always say be correct, kind and direct. Like you can be direct with people, but be kind when you're doing it. There's so much leadership in the Bible, and it might not be called, quote, leadership, but anything that you do that God's telling you to do in the way that he's called you to do it will help you be better as a leader.
That's great.
All of it.
Here's the verse I'm going to leave them with.
Yep.
Matthew 6:33. I think it's one of the most important verses in the Bible.
Yep.
Seek first, before you do anything else, the kingdom of God and his righteousness.
Mhm.
And the Bible says, and then after you do that, all of these other things that you desire will be added unto you. So whatever you're doing, seek God first and he'll work out the rest.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.